Okay, so picture this: a rambling old house with creaky floorboards, a sun drenched porch swing, and the smell of freshly baked cookies always lingering in the air. That was Grandma Rose's house, my haven, my sanctuary, the place where I grew up and where my heart always felt truly at home. Grandma Rose wasn't my actual grandma, not biologically anyway. She was my mom's best friend, the one who took me in when my parents decided they weren't quite ready for the whole responsibility thing. Yeah, I know, lucky me, right? But Grandma Rose, she was everything a kid could ask for. Loving, patient, always there with a warm hug and a plate of cookies. Her chocolate chip cookies were legendary. Growing up in that house was like living in a fairy tale. The garden was a magical wonderland, filled with flowers of every color, gnarled apple trees, and a hidden path that led to a babbling brook. The attic was a treasure trove of forgotten memories, filled with dusty trunks, antique furniture, and Grandma Rose's collection of vintage hats, which I used to try on, pretending I was a glamorous movie star. But it wasn't just the house itself, it was the feeling it evoked, the feeling of warmth, of safety, of unconditional love. It was the place where I could be myself, where I could laugh, cry, dream, and just be. Grandma Rose was the heart of that haven. She taught me how to bake, though my cookies never quite reached her level of perfection, how to garden, though my attempts at growing anything usually ended in disaster, and how to appreciate the simple things in life, like a good book, a warm cup of tea, and the sound of rain on the roof. She was also the one who encouraged my dreams, who believed in me even when I didn't believe in myself. She'd listen patiently to my endless ramblings about wanting to travel the world, to see new places, to experience different cultures. She'd nod, her eyes twinkling, and say, "You go for it, Emma. You chase those dreams. The world is waiting for you." And when I finally got that job offer, the one that would take me overseas, to a new country, a new adventure, it was Grandma Rose who hugged me tight, her eyes filled with pride and a hint of sadness, and said, "Go, Emma. Go and make your mark on the world. This house will be here waiting for you when you come back." And I believed her. I trusted her. I trusted my family, the ones who were supposed to take care of the house while I was gone, the ones who were supposed to be there for me, just like Grandma Rose had always been. But I was wrong, so very, very wrong. Okay, so the job offer? It was a dream come true. Think less soul-crushing corporate grind and more exciting international adventure with a side of career advancement and a generous salary. It was a chance to travel the world, to experience new cultures, to finally chase those dreams that Grandma Rose had always encouraged. I was ecstatic. I mean, who wouldn't be? It was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, the kind of thing that you only read about in those inspirational career change articles. I was going to be working for a nonprofit organization helping to develop sustainable communities in rural areas. It was challenging, meaningful work, the kind that made you feel like you were actually making a difference in the world. But there was a catch. The job was in Africa, rural Africa. Like no Wi-Fi, limited electricity, occasional lion sighting kind of rural. And it was for 3 years. 3 years away from everything I knew, everything I loved, everything that felt safe and familiar. My first thought was, what about Grandma Rose's house? The house was my anchor, my haven, the place I always returned to, no matter how far I wandered. The thought of leaving it, of entrusting it to someone else, filled me with a sense of unease, a pang of anxiety that I couldn't quite shake off. But Grandma Rose, bless her loving heart, wouldn't hear of it. "Emma, darling," she said, her voice firm but gentle, "you can't let this opportunity pass you by. It's what you've always wanted. Go, chase your dreams. The house will be here when you come back." "But what about the house?" I asked, my voice laced with worry. "Who will take care of it? What if something happens?" She smiled, her eyes twinkling. "Don't you worry your pretty little head about that, Emma. Your family will take care of it. They'll keep it safe, just like they've always kept you safe." And that's where I made my mistake. I trusted them. I trusted my aunt and uncle, the ones who were always so eager to offer advice, to lend a helping hand, to remind me how lucky I was to have them in my life. I trusted them to care for the house, to keep it safe, to preserve the memories, the haven, the legacy that Grandma Rose had left behind. I signed the contract, booked the flight, and packed my bags. The excitement was building, the anticipation bubbling inside me like a shaken champagne bottle. I was ready for this adventure, this new chapter, this chance to make my mark on the world. But as I walked through the house, my fingers tracing the familiar grooves in the banister, the scent of Grandma Rose's lavender sachets filling my senses, a pang of sadness tugged at my heart. This was my home, my haven, the place where I belonged. Leaving it felt like leaving a part of myself behind. I stood on the porch, looking out at the garden, the sun setting in a blaze of orange and pink, and a wave of doubt washed over me. Was I doing the right thing? Was I making a mistake? Should I stay? Should I give up this opportunity? Should I prioritize the house, the memories, the safety of the familiar? But then I remembered Grandma Rose's words, her unwavering belief in me, her encouragement to chase my dreams. And I knew that I couldn't let her down. I couldn't let myself down. This was my chance, my opportunity, my destiny, and I was going to grab it with both hands and never let go. So, with a deep breath and a bittersweet smile, I turned away from the house, my heart heavy but my spirit soaring. I was leaving, yes, but I was also embarking on a new adventure, a new chapter, a new beginning. And I knew, deep down, that no matter where I went, no matter what I did, Grandma Rose's house, the haven, the sanctuary, would always be a part of me, a place I could always return to in my heart, a memory that would forever shape who I was and who I would become. Okay, so 3 years of hard work, of long hours, of incredible experiences, and a whole lot of personal growth. I'd learned a new language, embraced a new culture, and made a real difference in the lives of the people I worked with. I'd faced challenges, overcome obstacles, and discovered a strength and resilience I never knew I had. But through it all, there was always a part of me that longed for home, for Grandma Rose's house, for the familiar creaky floorboards, for the smell of freshly baked cookies, for the feeling of safety and belonging that only that house could provide. So, when my contract finally ended, I booked the first flight back, my heart filled with a mix of excitement and trepidation. I couldn't wait to see the house, to walk through the garden, to sit on the porch swing and reminisce about Grandma Rose and all the happy memories we'd shared. But as I stepped off the plane, my phone, buzzing with messages from my family, a knot of anxiety tightened in my stomach. The messages were vague, evasive, filled with excuses about why they couldn't pick me up from the airport, why they couldn't meet me at the house, why they were busy with some urgent family matter. I brushed off the unease, telling myself I was just being paranoid. They were probably just planning a surprise welcome home party, I thought. Or maybe they were just busy with their own lives, their own families. After all, 3 years was a long time. I hailed a taxi, gave the driver the address, and settled back in the seat, my anticipation growing with every mile. I could practically picture the house, the garden, the porch swing, all waiting for me, just as I'd left them. But as the taxi turned onto the familiar street, my heart sank. The house wasn't there. In its place was a vacant lot, overgrown with weeds, a for sale sign planted squarely in the middle. No, I whispered, my voice barely audible. This can't be right. I stumbled out of the taxi, my legs shaky, my mind reeling. I checked the address, double-checked, triple-checked. It was the right street, the right number. But the house was gone. Panic surged through me, a wave of nausea rising in my throat. I fumbled for my phone, my fingers trembling as I dialed my aunt's number. "Hello?" she answered, her voice cheerful, oblivious to the devastation in mine. "Aunt Sarah," I said, my voice cracking. "Where's the house? Where's Grandma Rose's house?" Silence, a long, agonizing silence. Then a sigh. "Emma, dear," she said, her voice laced with a condescending pity, We sold it. A few months ago, it was just too much for us to handle, you know? The upkeep, the taxes. It was all just too much." "Sold it?" I repeated, my voice rising. But Grandma Rose left it to me. In her will. You know that." Another sigh. "Emma, dear, you were gone. We didn't know when you were coming back. We needed the money. And besides, you were living your own life, chasing your dreams. We thought you wouldn't mind." "Wouldn't mind?" I shrieked, my voice breaking. That was my home, my haven, my grandmother's legacy. You sold it without even telling me? Now, Emma, she said, her voice soothing, patronizing. Don't get upset. We used the money wisely. We invested it, bought a new car, took a nice vacation. We thought you'd be happy for us. Happy for them? They'd sold my home, my haven, my inheritance, and they expected me to be happy for them? Rage surged through me, a fiery inferno that threatened to consume me. You, I sputtered, unable to articulate the depth of my betrayal, the immensity of my loss. Emma, dear, she interrupted, her voice laced with impatience. We have to go. We're having a little celebration dinner tonight. You know, to celebrate our good fortune. You're welcome to join us if you like. A celebration dinner? To celebrate their betrayal, their greed, their utter disregard for my feelings, my heritage, my grandmother's memory? I hung up, the phone clattering to the ground, my tears flowing freely, my heart shattered into a million pieces. I stood there, on the empty lot, the for sale sign mocking me with its cheerful colors, the wind whistling through the weeds like a mournful lament. My home was gone, my haven destroyed, my family revealed as the vultures they truly were. And I, Emma, the girl who had always believed in the good in people, the one who had trusted, who had loved, who had hoped, was left with nothing but the bitter taste of betrayal and the crushing weight of despair. Okay, so picture this. Me, Emma, standing on a vacant lot where my home used to be, the for sale sign practically screaming in my face. My family's words, dripping with callous indifference, echoed in my head. We sold it. We needed the money. We thought you wouldn't mind. Yeah, right. Like I wouldn't mind losing the only real home I'd ever known, the place filled with memories of love and laughter, the place that was supposed to be my safe haven. I felt numb, hollowed out, like someone had scooped out my insides and replaced them with a cold, heavy stone. I wandered aimlessly, the city a blur of lights and noise, none of it registering. I didn't know where to go, what to do. My family, the people I'd trusted, the ones who were supposed to care for me, had betrayed me in the most profound way imaginable. They'd taken my home, my grandmother's legacy, my sense of belonging, and tossed it away like it was nothing. I crossed a street, lost in my thoughts, the traffic a distant hum. A car horn blared, a screech of tires, a sudden blinding flash of headlights. Then, nothing. It wasn't dramatic, no slow motion, tearful goodbye. Just a sudden, sharp pain, a feeling of weightlessness. And then, darkness. A vast, empty darkness where there was no house, no family, no memories, no anything, just nothing. It felt unfair, so incredibly unfair. I'd been betrayed, robbed of my past, and now robbed of my future. I hadn't even had a chance to grieve properly, to process the enormity of what had happened. One minute I was standing on that vacant lot, heartbroken and lost. The next, I was gone, just like that. Snuffed out, like a candle in the wind. It was a stupid, pointless, tragic end to a life that had already been filled with too much loss, too much pain, too much injustice. And the worst part? My family, the ones who had caused all this, they wouldn't even care. They'd probably just shrug, maybe shed a few crocodile tears, and then go back to celebrating their ill-gotten gains. They'd move on, while I wouldn't be moving on anywhere. My story was over, or so I thought. Okay, so death. Not exactly what I'd call a highlight of my day. One minute I'm seeing headlights, the next, nothing. Just blackness. Complete and utter nothingness. I was pretty sure that was it. Game over. Curtain call. The end. Except then I woke up. Not in some ethereal afterlife, surrounded by fluffy clouds and angelic harps. Nope. I woke up in my bed, my old bed. The one in Grandma Rose's house, the one with the floral print comforter and the slightly lopsided nightstand. Huh? I mumbled, my voice raspy, my head pounding. I sat up blinking, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. The room was exactly as I remembered it. The familiar scent of lavender and old books filled the air. Sunlight streamed through the window, casting a warm glow on the dusty bookshelves and the antique dresser. Am I dreaming? I wondered, pinching myself. Ouch. Definitely not a dream. But how? I distinctly remembered the car, the headlights, the everything. I was dead, wasn't I? I stumbled out of bed, my legs shaky, my mind reeling. I walked to the bathroom, my reflection staring back at me from the mirror. It was me, all right, but younger, fresher. Before the stress of the job, before the heartbreak, before, well, before everything. I looked around the bathroom, taking in the familiar details: the chipped ceramic sink, the faded floral wallpaper, the collection of vintage perfume bottles on the windowsill. It was like stepping back in time, like nothing had ever happened. But something had happened. I remembered it all: the job offer, the excitement, the trust, the betrayal, the accident. It was all there, vivid and clear. A series of memories that felt both recent and distant, like a nightmare I couldn't quite shake off. I walked downstairs, my heart pounding, my senses on high alert. The house was quiet, the air thick with the scent of— was that coffee? Grandma Rose always made coffee in the mornings. I pushed open the kitchen door, and there she was, sitting at the kitchen table, a steaming mug in her hand, a stack of newspapers spread out in front of her. She looked up, her eyes twinkling, a warm smile spreading across her face. "Emma, darling," she said, her voice gentle, "you're up early. Did you sleep well?" I stared at her, my breath catching in my throat. She was real. She was here. She was alive. And I was here too. Back in her house, back in my old life, back before. "Grandma Rose," I whispered, my voice trembling. She chuckled, her eyes filled with amusement. "Of course it's me, darling. Who else would it be?" I rushed over to her, my arms wrapping around her in a tight embrace. She hugged me back, her familiar warmth filling me with a sense of comfort, a sense of disbelief. I don't understand," I stammered, my voice muffled against her shoulder. How is this possible?" She patted my back gently, her smile softening. "I don't know, darling," she said, "but I'm glad you're here. I've missed you." I pulled back, my eyes searching hers, looking for some explanation, some clue, some sign that this was all real. But her eyes were filled with nothing but love and warmth, her expression serene and reassuring. And then it hit me. Deja vu. That feeling of having experienced something before, of reliving a moment in time. I'd been given a second chance, a chance to go back, to change things, to make different choices, a chance to rewrite my story. "Grandma Rose," I said, my voice steadier now, a sense of purpose beginning to form in my mind. What year is it?" She looked at me, her brow furrowed. "It's 2020, darling," she said. "Why do you ask?" 3 years before I left for Africa, 3 years before everything. I took a deep breath, my mind racing, my heart pounding with a mix of excitement and determination. This was it, my second chance, my opportunity to change the future, to protect what was mine, to get justice for what had been taken from me. And this time, I wasn't going anywhere. Okay, so 2020, 3 years to rewrite the script, to change the ending, to make sure that "for sale" sign never gets planted on Grandma Rose's lawn. No way was I letting my family get away with this. Not this time. They wanted to play dirty? Fine. Two could play at that game. My first thought was revenge. Sweet, sweet revenge. I pictured myself confronting them, exposing their lies, shaming them in front of everyone they knew. But then I realized that wasn't enough. It wouldn't bring back the house, wouldn't erase the hurt, wouldn't undo the betrayal. I needed a plan, a real plan, one that would not only punish them, but also protect what was rightfully mine. And that's when it hit me: real estate. If they thought they could just waltz in and sell Grandma Rose's house, they were in for a rude awakening. I was going to beat them at their own game. I was going to become a real estate mogul, a property flipping queen, a force to be reckoned with in the housing market. Forget Africa, forget the nonprofit, forget saving the world. For now, anyway. My new mission? to become the biggest, baddest real estate shark this town had ever seen. I started with the basics. I devoured books on real estate investing, attended seminars, and even signed up for an online course. My brain, always my strongest asset, was like a sponge, soaking up information, analyzing trends, and formulating strategies. I learned about market values, property assessments, negotiation tactics, and the legal ins and outs of buying and selling houses. Then came the practical experience. I started small, flipping a rundown condo I found listed below market value. It was a fixer-upper, a real diamond in the rough, but with some elbow grease and a few strategically placed calls to contractors. I transformed it into a stylish, modern apartment that sold for a hefty profit. The thrill of that first sale, the feeling of accomplishment, the knowledge that I'd outmaneuvered the market, it was intoxicating. I was hooked. I reinvested my profits, bought another property, then another, and another. Each sale brought more knowledge, more confidence, more money. But it wasn't just about the money. It was about the power to control my own destiny, to protect what was mine, to make sure that no one, not even my own family, could ever take advantage of me again. I built a network of contacts, real estate agents, contractors, investors, even a slightly shady lawyer who knew all the loopholes in the local zoning laws. I learned to read people, to anticipate their moves, to negotiate with the best of them. I was no longer the naive, trusting girl who'd left for Africa. I was a businesswoman, a strategist, a force to be reckoned with. And all the while, I kept my eye on the prize, Grandma Rose's house. I knew they'd try to sell it again, probably as soon as they thought I was out of the picture. But this time, they wouldn't get away with it. This time, I'd be ready. I tracked their every move, monitored the market, and waited for the perfect moment to strike. And when that for sale sign finally reappeared, a smug grin spread across my face. It was game on. Okay, so Operation Reclaim the House was officially in full swing. And let me tell you, it was a grind. Forget glamorous parties and fancy vacations, my life was all about spreadsheets, market analyses, and late-night negotiations. Who knew real estate was so complicated? But hey, I was determined. No way was I letting those vultures get away with stealing my inheritance. They thought they could outsmart me? Ha! They underestimated the power of a woman scorned and armed with a laptop and a Wi-Fi connection. My days were a blur of activity. Mornings were for coffee, lots and lots of coffee, and cramming as much real estate knowledge into my brain as possible. I read every book, every article, every blog post I could find. I even started listening to those real estate podcasts at 1.5x speed just to maximize my learning time. My brain was practically overflowing with property jargon and investment strategies. Afternoons were for networking. I attended every real estate event, every open house, every industry mixer I could find. I schmoozed with realtors, chatted up contractors, and even managed to charm a few wealthy investors. Turns out, a genuine smile and a good understanding of ROI can go a long way. Evenings were for more work, analyzing properties, crunching numbers, and making deals. I learned to spot a bargain a mile away, to negotiate like a pro, and to close a deal with a handshake, and a legally binding contract, of course. And let's not forget the weekends. Forget sleeping in or brunching with friends. My weekends were for open houses, property viewings, and DIY renovations. Who knew I had a knack for tiling bathrooms and installing kitchen cabinets? Thanks, YouTube tutorials. It wasn't easy. There were setbacks, frustrations, moments where I wanted to throw my laptop out the window and scream into a pillow. But I kept going. The thought of my family, living it up on the money they'd made from selling my house, fueled my determination. They thought they'd broken me? Ha! They'd just made me stronger, smarter, and more ruthless. The transformation was kind of shocking, even to me. The old Emma, the trusting, naive girl who'd left for Africa, she was gone. In her place was a new Emma, a woman who knew what she wanted and wasn't afraid to go after it. A woman who could read a balance sheet, negotiate a contract, and spot a shady deal a mile away. A woman who was ready to take on the world, one property at a time. And as I looked in the mirror, at the determined glint in my eyes, the confident set of my jaw, I couldn't help but smile. This was the real me, the one I was always meant to be. the one who was going to take back what was rightfully hers and maybe, just maybe, make a little fortune along the way. Okay, so I was knee-deep in real estate, flipping houses like pancakes and feeling pretty damn good about myself. But there was still this nagging feeling, this unfinished business. I mean, taking back the house was one thing, but what about the money? The money my family had pocketed from selling it, that was rightfully mine too. One rainy afternoon, while rummaging through the attic, a favorite pastime since childhood, I stumbled upon an old trunk, tucked away in a dusty corner. It was Grandma Rose's memory chest, filled with old photos, letters, and other sentimental treasures. As I sifted through the contents, a faded envelope caught my eye. It was addressed to me, in Grandma Rose's familiar handwriting. "To my dearest Emma," it read. My heart skipped a beat. I carefully opened the envelope, my fingers trembling slightly. Inside was a letter, dated a few months before she passed away. "My dearest Emma," it began. "If you're reading this, it means I'm no longer with you. But I want you to know that I love you dearly, and I'll always be watching over you." Tears welled up in my eyes as I read her words, her voice echoing in my memory. She went on to talk about the house, about how much it meant to her, about how she wanted it to be my safe haven, just as it had been for her. And then came the bombshell. "I've left the house to you in my will, Emma," she wrote. "It's yours legally and rightfully. No one can ever take it from you." My jaw dropped. The will? Of course! Grandma Rose had always been meticulous about her affairs. She'd told me about the will, but I'd been so caught up in the excitement of the job offer that I'd completely forgotten about it. I frantically searched the trunk, tossing aside old photo albums and crocheted blankets. And there it was, at the very bottom, a thick envelope marked, "Last Will and Testament." My heart pounded as I ripped it open. The legal jargon swam before my eyes. But the key points were clear. The house was mine and mine alone. My family had no legal right to sell it, no claim to the money. They'd been living a lie, celebrating their ill-gotten gains, while I'd been grieving the loss of what was rightfully mine. A wave of anger washed over me, hot and fierce. But then it was replaced by a feeling of triumph. This changed everything. This gave me the ultimate leverage. Not only could I take back the house, but I could also expose their fraud, reclaim the money, and leave them with absolutely nothing. A slow, satisfied smile spread across my face. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. This was about justice. This was about honoring Grandma Rose's memory, protecting her legacy, and making sure that her love and generosity weren't exploited by those who didn't deserve it. Game on indeed. Okay, so the day of the auction. I woke up with a knot of nervous excitement in my stomach. This was it, the culmination of months of planning, strategizing, and grinding. The day I'd take back what was rightfully mine and show my family that they couldn't mess with Emma 2.0. I put on my power suit, the one I'd bought with the profits from my last house flip, the one that screamed, "I'm a successful businesswoman and you're going to regret messing with me." I checked my reflection in the mirror, a confident smirk playing on my lips. Game face, on. The auction was held at the house itself, which was just perfect. I arrived early, scoping out the competition, a mix of young couples, eager investors, and a few nosy neighbors. My family was already there, of course, my aunt and uncle preening like peacocks, their kids running around the yard like they owned the place. Yeah, not for long. The auctioneer, a fast-talking guy with a booming voice and a cheesy smile, kicked things off. The starting bid was ridiculously low, an insult to the house and everything it represented. My aunt and uncle, smug and confident, immediately jumped in, throwing out bids like they were monopoly money. I hung back, letting them take the lead, a sense of anticipation building inside me. This was all part of the plan. Let them think they were in control. Let them get comfortable. Let them overextend themselves. The bidding war heated up, the price climbing higher and higher. My family, their faces flushed with excitement, kept upping the ante, their eyes gleaming with greed. They were so focused on winning, on getting their hands on that sweet, sweet cash, that they didn't even notice me standing quietly in the back, a silent observer, a predator waiting to pounce. Then, at the perfect moment, When the bidding reached a fever pitch, I stepped forward. 200,000, I said, my voice clear and confident, cutting through the excited chatter like a knife. The room went silent. All eyes turned to me, a mix of surprise, curiosity, and recognition. My aunt and uncle, their smiles frozen on their faces, their eyes wide with shock, stared at me like I was a ghost. Emma? My aunt sputtered, her voice laced with disbelief. What? What are you doing here? Oh, just buying a house, I said, my smile widening. This house, to be exact. But, my uncle stammered, his face turning a delightful shade of purple. We thought. You thought I wouldn't mind? I finished, my voice dripping with sarcasm. You thought you could just sell my grandmother's house, pocket the money, and I'd be okay with it? Seriously? Their faces crumpled, a mix of guilt, shame, and panic. They knew they'd been caught, outplayed, outmaneuvered. The auctioneer, sensing the drama, grinned. Do I hear 210,000? He boomed. My aunt and uncle hesitated, their eyes darting between me and the auctioneer, their greed battling with their fear. They wanted the house, the money, but they also didn't want to lose face, to admit defeat in front of everyone. 210,000, I said, raising my hand, my smile widening. Going once. They looked at each other, their faces pale, their confidence shattered. They knew they couldn't compete, not with me, not with the resources I'd built, not with the determination that burned inside me. Going twice. They remained silent, their shoulders slumping, their dreams of easy money evaporating before their eyes. Sold, the auctioneer declared, banging his gavel, to the young lady in the back for $210,000. A cheer erupted from the crowd, a mix of genuine excitement and vicarious satisfaction. I stood there, basking in the applause, the victory sweeter than any champagne, any award, any accomplishment I'd ever achieved. I'd done it. I'd taken back what was mine, outplayed the people who'd betrayed me, and reclaimed my grandmother's legacy. My aunt and uncle, their faces a mask of defeat, approached me, their eyes pleading. Emma, my aunt said, her voice trembling, we can explain. Save it, I said, my voice cold, hard. You had your chance. You made your choice. Now it's my turn. And with that, I turned away from them, my head held high, my heart filled with a sense of triumph and a quiet satisfaction. The house was mine. The game was over. And I, Emma, the girl who'd been betrayed, discarded, and left for dead, was the victor. Okay, so winning the auction was awesome, a real mic drop moment. But the real fun started after the crowd dispersed and I was left alone with my dear, oh so sorry family. They huddled together in the living room, looking like a bunch of kicked puppies, their earlier smugness replaced by a healthy dose of panic. Emma, honey, my aunt started, her voice all sugary sweet, we really need to talk? Sure thing, Auntie, I said, leaning against the doorway, my arms crossed, a smirk playing on my lips. Talk away. I'm all ears. My uncle, never the sharpest tool in the shed, blurted out, Look, we messed up, okay? We shouldn't have sold the house, but we can fix this. We'll give you the money, every penny. Oh, really? I said, raising an eyebrow. And where exactly is this money coming from? The new car? The fancy vacation? Or maybe that little celebration dinner you were so excited about? Their faces paled. They'd already spent it, of course, blown it on frivolous things, thinking they'd gotten away with it. Look, Emma, my aunt pleaded, her voice cracking. We're family. We can work this out. We made a mistake. A mistake? I scoffed. You stole my inheritance, Auntie. You lied to me, betrayed my trust, and treated my grandmother's memory like it was nothing. And you call that a mistake? We're sorry, okay? My uncle said, his voice rising. We didn't mean to hurt you. We needed the money. Needed it? I laughed, a harsh, humorless sound. You needed a new car, a fancy vacation. You needed to celebrate your greed while I was slaving away in Africa, trying to make a difference in the world? They looked at each other, their eyes darting nervously, their excuses drying up faster than a puddle in the desert. Enough with the apologies, I said, my voice hardening. You're not sorry. You're just sorry you got caught. I reached into my bag and pulled out the will, the one I'd found in Grandma Rose's trunk. This, I said, holding it up, is my grandmother's will, the one that clearly states that this house belongs to me, the one you conveniently forgot about when you decided to sell it behind my back. Their eyes widened in horror. They knew the game was up. They'd been outplayed, outmaneuvered, and exposed for the greedy, selfish people they truly were. But, my aunt stammered, her voice barely a whisper. No buts, Auntie, I interrupted, my voice cold, sharp. You had your chance. You made your choice. Now it's time to face the consequences. I took a deep breath, the satisfaction of this moment washing over me like a tidal wave. This house, I said, my voice ringing with authority, is mine. And you're trespassing. Their faces crumpled, a mix of fear, anger, and desperation. They started to protest, to plead, to offer excuses, but I cut them off with a wave of my hand. Save it, I said, my voice firm, unwavering. I'm not interested in your apologies, your excuses, or your empty promises. You had your chance, and you blew it. Now get out. They looked at me, their eyes filled with a mixture of disbelief and resentment. They wanted to argue, to fight, to cling to the life they'd built on lies and deceit, but they knew they couldn't. They'd been defeated, their schemes exposed, their power stripped away. Fine, my aunt spat, her voice laced with venom. We'll go, but you'll regret this, Emma. You'll regret turning your back on your family. Family? I laughed, a bitter, hollow sound. You call this family? You call stealing from your own niece, betraying her trust, and desecrating her grandmother's memory family? I'd rather be an orphan. They glared at me, their faces contorted with rage, their pride wounded, their greed thwarted. But they knew they had no choice. They gathered their belongings, their movements slow, reluctant, their eyes filled with a simmering resentment that promised future trouble. I watched them leave, their figures shrinking in the distance, and a sense of, not exactly happiness, but something close to it, filled me. I'd done it. I'd reclaimed my home, exposed their lies, and sent them packing with nothing but the clothes on their backs and the bitter taste of defeat. I stood on the porch, the setting sun casting a warm glow on the familiar surroundings, and a feeling of peace settled over me. The house was mine again. The haven was restored. And I, Emma, the girl who'd been betrayed, discarded, and left for dead, was finally home.